Getting down low. He getting down low. He getting down low. There you go.
There you
Shoot.
go. There you go. There you go.
There you go. They're both of them.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, he came all the way up here on them. I mean, he walked all the way up there.
His repass. They already had his funeral early today. This at the repass. They was walking in, and they shut the repass up. They seen Lolo walking in the door and shut it up.
That clip was filmed on December 13th, 2024, outside a community center in Brighton, Alabama, and the person recording it could barely hold themselves together long enough to explain what had just happened. A rapper named Landlord Low had walked into his uncle's funeral repass, the gathering that families hold after a burial to eat, grieve, and be together, and he never made it back out. What makes this story hit different is that just 3 months before that day, he sat down for a long interview and told the whole world that he had finally made it through the worst of his life, that 2024 was his first real year of freedom since 2015, and that he was genuinely at peace. Then someone who used to call him a friend showed up to that repass with a rifle and changed everything. Stay with me on this, because by the time we get to the end of this story, one detail about who else died that day is going to stop you completely. His real name was D'Angelo Lamarcus Samuel, and he was born in March of 1997 in Brighton, Alabama, a small city of under 3,000 people sitting just outside of Birmingham. He went by Landlord Low, and the name was not random because his projects were called Rent Due Volume 2, and Eviction Notice, with the whole brand built around the idea of collecting what you are owed and making people face consequences. That energy came directly from the world he grew up in. When he talked about his childhood, he kept it real and kept it short.
How it was like growing up in Brighton?
Regular. Like a normal hood. You got some folks with money, some folks ain't got money.
Okay, well. So what school you in going to? Or high school?
I went to elementary school in Fairfield, Brighton. Then I went to Brighton Middle School, then I went to Harrytown High School. I started going to Harrytown probably about 11th grade. They put me out.
He went to elementary school in Fairfield, moved on to Bryant Middle School, and then enrolled at Hillcrest High School, though by the time he reached 11th grade, the school had put him out. He played football his whole childhood and was always the one rapping at the lunch table, getting the whole table going.
Beatboxing at the lunch table, freestyling at the lunch table.
So you're freestyling?
Yeah, I do that shit every day at lunch. Me and my little clique. Beat on the table, rap. I just kept on rapping.
He said he started taking rap seriously around 2017 and 2018 after people around him kept pushing him to stop treating it like a hobby. And the turning point came when he started playing his music in the car on the block. People began playing it at the corner store, and he decided to go all the way in.
My folks were like, bro, you too hard. I was just making songs, playing this shit on the block in the car. Then goddamn, when folks would be like, send that shit to him, then you go from sending it to folks to now the whole hood got it, now the children playing the shit at the store. I was like, might well do it for real.
But for D'Angelo, music and the street were never two separate worlds, because they were always running alongside each other, and the legal system was always somewhere in the mix. On April 8, 2015, a 23-year-old man named Kevin Hatter was found shot and killed in the front yard of a home on the 1200 block of 47th Street in Brighton. D'Angelo Samuel was 18 years old at the time, and he was arrested on April 25, 2015 and charged with murder, with his bond set at $75,000. The situation that led to that shooting was not simple. Defense accounts from his lawyers described the dispute that was originally supposed to be settled with a fistfight with no weapons involved, but the other man in the dispute put his gun down while Hatter refused to do the same. and after Hatter shot that man in the leg, multiple people opened fire. Samuel's attorney argued from the beginning that this was self-defense, and that argument would eventually carry the day. After spending time in Jefferson County Jail, having his bond taken away after he was caught with a pistol, and then spending years on house arrest with a GPS monitor on his ankle, the case finally went to trial in 2018, where a 6-day trial followed by 2 days of the jury talking it over ended with D'Angelo Samuel being found not guilty on all counts. But that was not the end of his legal troubles, not even close, because 2020 brought another wave of charges, including multiple arrests between March and August of that year, a first-degree robbery charge, shooting complaints, and 3 counts of attempted murder. One of those cases involved a woman who was shot, leading to charges of attempted murder and shooting into an occupied vehicle. He turned himself in for one of those arrests and even filmed himself on the way in. He would go on to spend another 14 months locked up during that stretch, and then years on house arrest and GPS monitoring from 2021 all the way through early 2024. Through all of that time, he kept recording music from wherever he could, building his whole catalog while under supervision, staying tight with his circle, and eventually linking up with Memphis rapper Pooh Shiesty on a track called Chance. That track ended up pulling over 1.7 million views on YouTube.
How they fuck up and give me a chance to take over the blow. Alabama, we spell with them hammer, me and landlord low. Just like a screw, you play with that screw, I'm clutching on the pole. Sign that deal, bitch, I'm dropping back, catch me before I blow. Everybody TTG, you know we trying to go. Head shots, if you try ducking these, we gon' shoot up the floor. My head gun in this car hot as fuck, when I step out, I'm cold, ratchet out. I can't stick the glitz and I can't do the show. Christian Louboutin, Louis V, bitch, I'm tripping to the flow. Buzzer beater, last minute shot, I just went up the stove. Green cipher, on some cypher shit, walk down and wipe your nose. Ain't no killer, could've walked down, but you shot across the road.
He talked about what that recording process looked like while locked up, calling in from Jefferson County Jail.
Now we got connects all through the county, man. We connected in the county, man. We connected in the county.
Real connected. You see this? Hold up.
Oh yeah, boom, look at that. Look at that. That shit say setting up visa, right? Setting up visa. My nigga finna come on this thing, man.
Every single one of the 2020 charges was eventually dismissed in 2024, after the female victim in the case took back what she had said. And in September of 2024, D'Angelo Samuel finally sat down to tell the full story, with the Family TV uploading a nearly 1-hour interview called Beats and Bullets, the Alabama rapper who lived to tell his story.
Boy, landlord low, man. What happened, low?
Just chilling.
So, low, let them know what side of town you from.
I'm from Brighton, Alabama. Right near Doda Beltman, down the street from Birmingham.
So,
Little country town.
I feel like a lot of these cats intimidated by you, man. Like, what's over there?
I don't know, man. I'm like the shit. I'm the most calm and coolest person you could be around, for real. I guess they be so used to
that went on to collect 184,000 views. He called 24 his first free year since 2015 and talked about what 5 years of house arrest and courtrooms does to a person's mind, the friends he had lost to violence, the music that kept him going, and the decision to stay out of the way and just focus on building something real. That interview, recorded roughly 2.5 months before his death, is now the closest thing to a final public statement that D'Angelo Samuel ever gave, and the tone of it was calm, grateful, and fully focused on the future, with nothing in it that sounded like a man who knew what was coming for him. To understand what happened on December 13th, you need to understand who James David Abercrombie III was and what he had already done to D'Angelo Samuel before that day. Abercrombie was born November 6, 1997, in Fairfield, Alabama, close enough to Brighton that he and Samuel had grown up in the same orbit and, for a period of time, were actually on decent terms with each other. But something between them had turned violent, and by the fall of 2024, that shift had already drawn blood. Before any of that happened with Samuel, though, Abercrombie had been moving through the system on his own because he had a prior conviction for first-degree robbery and had already done time for it. Then, in early to mid-October of 2024, and one wrong move was supposed to send him straight back. He had been out for barely over a month, and that did not slow him down at all. Around Halloween night, October 31st, 2024, Abercrombie allegedly tracked down D'Angelo Samuel and shot him in a separate, non-fatal attack. Samuel survived, and Abercrombie was charged with attempted murder for it, but those charges never made it to trial, and the reason why will tell you everything you need to know about what came next. After that October shooting, instead of laying low and letting the legal situation play out, Abercrombie kept the pressure going and even sent direct death threats to Samuel, with one message saying he was gonna kill you next time I see you. That was not vague or heat of the moment language that someone could explain away later, because he had already shot the man and then wrote down in a message exactly what he planned to do the next time he saw him.
All of this was happening while D'Angelo was publicly putting out the most peaceful version of himself he had ever shown, with his Instagram bio saying, "I'm FNF at peace. I love who loved me." His family TV interview ended with him talking about staying out the way, protecting women and elders, and using music as his way forward. Now, let us set the scene of December 13th, 2024 properly, because the day itself started as something that should have been entirely about love and family. D'Angelo Samuel's uncle, Frederick Lee Samuel, 62 years old, had passed away, and the family had come together to honor him, with the funeral already taking place earlier that morning, and the repass being held at the Brighton Community Center on 7th Avenue. If you know anything about Southern Black culture, you already understand what a repass means, because it is not just food after a funeral. It is where the grief gets shared, where people hold each other, and where the pain of losing someone gets softened a little by being surrounded by everyone who loved that same person. It is sacred space, and the idea of bringing violence into that space is considered one of the deepest violations you can commit in that community. And yet, around 2:18 in the afternoon on December 13th, a vehicle pulled into the parking lot of that community center, carrying people who had not come to grieve anything. D'Angelo Samuel, Rodri Hall, and Hall's brother were standing just outside the front door under the awning when three masked men stepped out of a gray Jeep Wrangler that had been circling the parking lot. One of them walked straight toward the men standing at the entrance, raised a rifle, and opened fire from just a few feet away. Both Samuel and Hall were hit multiple times. Hall's brother hit the ground and stayed there. 4 vehicles in the parking lot were struck by bullets that went wide, and the shooter jogged back through the lot, still holding the rifle, with the driver of the Jeep still in the car. And then they were gone. D'Angelo Samuel and Rodri Hall were both pronounced dead at the scene, and neither man had a weapon on them. Family members' cries could be heard all the way out in the parking lot as the first responders arrived, and a room full of people who had gathered to say goodbye to one person now had to find a way to make sense of losing 2 more before they even made it home. Now, we need to talk about the second person who was killed that day, because this is the part that changes the entire story. Rodri, or Rod Hall, was 38 years old from Midfield, Alabama, and he had no criminal record at all, no connection to the dispute between Samuel and Abercrombie, and no part in any of the history we just laid out. Brighton Police Captain Kenneth Hooton, who had known Rod Hall since they were kids in elementary school together, and was also one of the first people to respond to the scene that day, he described him as someone who never bothered anyone, a man who stayed low-key and was always checking in on people and always ready to say, "You need anything? All you gotta do is ask."
A deadly shooting outside the Brighton Community Center. We've been covering this story for the last 8 hours, and we're the first to bring it to you as breaking news earlier today.
Now, here's what we've learned since our last update. The gunman is still on the run tonight, and no one is in custody. 2 men were killed just after 2:15 this afternoon. Surveillance cameras captured the shooting and the suspect running from the scene. A Christmas parade and breakfast scheduled for tomorrow morning at the community center is canceled.
Let's get right to WVTN 13's Aaron Llewellyn, joining us live after spending the night at the scene. Aaron, tell us what you've learned.
Yeah, Jarvis Sherry. While I was at the scene, I talked to a woman who tells me that one man who was shot and killed is a local rapper, and the other one was described as a family man who stayed out the way. Now, the shooting happened outside of the Brighton Community Center, and inside there was a repass going on at that time. Now, one family who was dealing with the loss is forced to grieve another. Caught on camera, 2 men shot and killed right outside the Brighton Community Center Friday afternoon.
We got cameras up here, and we're going to stay digging deep in this with Jefferson County to make sure we bring these people to justice.
No one has been arrested in connection to the shooting just yet, This is surveillance video shared by Brighton City Council member Jerome McMullen, and you saw it here first on WVTM 13. The video shows the last shots fired at least one of the victims, with the suspect running through the parking lot towards a car waiting for him and driving off.
I was anxious to get up here to see what was going on, and sadly to see, it was 2 bodies laying out in the front.
In this picture from the security video, you can see 3 people laying on the ground after the shots were fired. WVTM 13 wanted to know what the condition of the third man was, or if he was even injured during the shooting. McMullen tells me he wasn't injured and was laying on the ground to avoid being shot, and is the brother of one of the men who died.
A lot of kids going on, and we got to get this stuff under control. It's sad that it keep happening, but we got to get it under control.
The Jefferson County Sheriff's Office says Brighton Fire and Rescue were called to the community center on 2 people shot. At the time, there was a repass going on inside. A woman I talked to, who didn't want to go on camera, tells me they heard the shots and ran inside a closet to avoid being hit.
I'm concerned about all the citizens of Brighton, and I was just hoping it wasn't a loved one that I knew, a friend that I knew, but it's a tragedy. It don't matter whether I knew them or did not know them. It's a tragedy for people to lose their life in this city.
Robert Crawford says he grew up in this community and still lives there.
I think it used to be a quiet community, but over the years, there's been a few changes when it comes to violence.
Crawford says there was a shooting at the community center in the past, and he doesn't want crime scene tape and grieving families because of gun violence to become a normal thing.
I want Brighton to be on the map, but I don't want them to be recognized for being the capital of Jefferson County.
A local resident named Alex Cooper, who knew both men killed that day, called Hall a family man who stayed out of the way. Here is the detail that makes this the most painful part of the whole story. Rodri Hall was the paternal uncle of James David Abercrombie III, which means the man who pulled that trigger shot and killed his own uncle. Rod Hall was not a target and had no beef with anyone, and he ended up dead simply because he was standing next to the person his nephew had come to kill, while Hall's brother, who was also Abercrombie's uncle, was standing right next to both of them when the shots came and survived only by throwing himself to the ground. The Jefferson County Sheriff's Office took the lead on the investigation from the moment they responded to the shots fired call, with Brighton Fire and Rescue arriving and officially pronouncing both men dead at the scene before the Sheriff's Office took over and began pulling together the security footage, the vehicle records, the phone data, and every piece of physical evidence they could find.
Security camera actually here at the community center, you can see it over my right shoulder, captured the entire shooting. It showed the suspect firing on one victim laying here, a victim on the other side of the doorway here, before running off through the parking lot, getting into an SUV and being driven off. And now the Sheriff's Office is seeking the public's help to put the shooter behind bars. Take a look at the center security images for yourself. You can see the shooter standing near the doorway before turning away with their gun and running toward the street. An SUV picked the suspect up and drove off. Alex Cooper knew victims Rodri Hall and D'Angelo Samuel, and he arrived on the scene along with some of the responding police.
Both of them were my friends. I started crying. It's just sad, senseless.
Cooper tells us they were there for Samuel's uncle's repass after Frederick Samuel recently died from a heart attack. While the friends were standing by the door with countless people of all ages inside, the shooter walked up and gunned them down.
That's senseless. That's heartless. First of all, that's heartless.
The shooting forced Brighton to cancel its Christmas parade on Saturday. Today, the bullet-riddled community center was closed, and Cooper says he is praying for those on every side of what he calls a senseless act.
Praying for the people, whoever did it. I'm praying for them. Just go and turn yourself in.
The Jefferson County Sheriff's Office is recruiting the public's help to get those responsible for shattering a moment to mourn with more death off the streets.
The first major break came straight from the community center's own cameras because surveillance footage captured the entire attack. All 3 men on foot were masked, which meant investigators could not identify anyone directly from their faces. But the shooter had made one major mistake that he probably did not think about when he got dressed that morning. He was wearing pants with a large Jack Skellington Skellington print on them, referring to the main character from the 1993 Tim Burton film The Nightmare Before Christmas. It is a very distinctive black and white patterned design with the tall skeleton character's face on it that is not something you can easily confuse with regular clothing. Combined with black and white tennis shoes and a black mask, those pants made the shooter recognizable across multiple camera angles, even with his face fully covered. Investigators then pulled surveillance footage from a nearby Target store dated December 12, 2024, which was the day before the shooting.
Right there. Yep, I see. He getting down low. He getting down low. He getting down low. There you go. Shoot. There you go. Shoot. There you go. There you go. They're both of them. Mm-hmm. Oh, he came all the way up here on them. I mean, he walked all the way up there. I mean, shooting them too.
He came out there from, there you go, look at running
back. Uh-huh.
And that footage showed Abercrombie and his girlfriend, Breonna Turner, walking out of the same gray Jeep Wrangler, with Abercrombie wearing those exact same Jack Skellington pants on camera the day before the murder. That was the thread that started pulling everything apart. A search warrant was then executed on the apartment that Abercrombie shared with Turner, and inside, investigators found his wallet with his identification in it, the matching black and white tennis shoes, a Target receipt from the purchase of the Jack Skellington pants, and a black mask stuffed inside a garbage bag. The mask was sent off for DNA testing, though those results had not been publicly released by the time of the preliminary hearing. The Jeep also had its own story to tell, because investigators tracked its movements through the regional Flock camera network, which automatically reads license plates and logs where vehicles travel, and they followed the vehicle from the scene all the way until it was found burned in a city called Childersburg, roughly 30 to 40 miles southeast of Brighton. Burning a car after a crime is a common way to try to destroy evidence, but the vehicle identification number survived the fire and confirmed the car was registered to Turner. Investigators sat down with Turner 3 separate times, and in the first 2 conversations, she was not giving straight answers and kept changing her story. But in the 3rd interview, she finally admitted that Abercrombie had her Jeep and was driving it on the day of the killings. She now faces a separate charge of hindering the prosecution for initially trying to cover for him. On top of everything else, Verizon Wireless records confirmed that Abercrombie's phone was physically located at the Brighton Community Center at the exact time the shooting took place. And with the phone data, the target footage, the clothing recovered from the apartment, the receipt, and the burned Jeep all lining up around the same person, the investigators had enough to move. Abercrombie III was arrested on December 20th, 2024, exactly 1 week after the shooting, and booked into Jefferson County Jail at 9:52 in the morning, and he has been held without bond on the capital murder charge from that moment on. The charges brought against him include capital murder for the killing of 2 or more people in one act, 4 counts of firing a weapon into an occupied vehicle, and being a person forbidden by law to possess a firearm because of his prior robbery conviction.
Now an arrest in last week's double homicide that happened outside a funeral repass at the Brighton Community Center. This surveillance video shows somebody running from the scene, jumping in a Jeep and driving off. That shooting killed 38-year-old Rodri Hall and 27-year-old D'Angelo Samuel. Well, today, James David Abercrombie III was arrested and now charged with capital murder. Court records, by the way, also show that he allegedly shot Samuel twice. First, back on Halloween, and was charged with attempted murder then.
On February 3, 2025, the case moved to a preliminary hearing in front of Judge Thomas Thrash in Bessemer Cutoff Circuit Court. And for anyone unfamiliar with how the American court process works, a preliminary hearing is where the prosecution has to show the judge enough evidence to justify sending the case to a grand jury for a full trial. The main witness for the prosecution was Jefferson County Sheriff's Detective Yvette Medina, who laid out the full picture of what investigators had found. Assistant District Attorney Liana Huddleston called the combined body of evidence cement, making a particular point of addressing the attempted murder charge from October that had been dropped after Samuel died by telling the court. She said that the defendant had tried to kill Samuel a month and a half before this. He was charged with attempted murder, and the cases were dropped only because the victim was in fact now dead, again at the hands of James Abercrombie. Abercrombie's defense attorney Eric Hamilton pushed back hard and called the whole case a hunch built on things that could not fully identify his client, going after Turner's credibility for having lied to police twice before changing her story and saying she has ample motive to lie. He argued that the Jack Skellington pants were not unique enough to pin a murder on someone, and also challenged the Facebook death threats by arguing there was no proof Abercrombie himself was the one who created or used the account that sent those messages. He pointed out that no firearm was ever recovered, and that the concrete surface at the scene made it impossible to collect footprints or direct physical trace evidence from the ground. Huddleston came right back and told the judge, "It's cement. They're walking on cement. How do you get a footprint from cement?" and went on to say that the defense was choosing not to address the attempted murder and death threats, which she called huge indicators when you tried to kill somebody and failed, and then go back a month and a half later. Judge Thrash ruled that there was enough probable cause on all counts to send the case to a grand jury, and also authorized prosecutors to take a DNA swab from Abercrombie for future comparison against the mask that was recovered from the apartment. There was one more strange twist in this story that happened after the shooting. Brighton City Councilman Jerome Edward McMullen Jr. walked into the taped-off crime scene while the investigation was still active, used his personal phone to record the security footage directly from the community center's camera system, and then shared that video with news outlets. He was charged in June 2025 with obstruction and tampering with physical evidence, and by August 2025 he was found not guilty on one charge, with the other being dismissed entirely, while the case against Abercrombie moved forward without any impact from that situation. As of April 2026, Abercrombie is still sitting in pretrial custody at Jefferson County Jail without bond, and no trial date has been made public. This story is not just about one rapper losing his life, because it is really about what it costs to grow up in a place where the streets follow you even when you have done everything right to leave them behind. D'Angelo Samuels spent years fighting to make it to the other side, and he made it to 2024. He got his first free year. He was talking about his future openly and publicly. And then the one place he should have been completely untouchable turned out to be where all of it ended. Do you think justice will be served in this case? Let me know in the comments section. Also, click on one of the cards on your screen to see more videos like this. See you in the next one.